What's going on, everyone? So yesterday, the Los Angeles Lakers signed Quincy Olivari to an Exhibit 10 contract. You may have remembered him in the last game in particular with the Lakers Summer League team, in which he went off 20 points. He hit I believe it was 6 threes and just shot the lights out. That's what he's looked at as this just high volume, vacuum 3-point scorer. In college with Xavier, he averaged 19 points, 5.6 rebounds, 2.1 assists, and 1.4 steals, while shooting 42.5% from the field and 40.9% from three-point range in 34 games. So just a tiny, teeny hair under 41% from three. So the hope is, and the idea is, that it can translate to the NBA. Now, if I'm being honest, I don't see him going anywhere but the G League. This is a training camp invite, right? So he's going to be able to, display his talents with the main roster, with the two-way guys. He can be converted into a two-way contract. However, I don't see him getting a two-way over Armel Traore, Blake Hinson, or Colin Castleton, unless the Lakers end up making a move, right? Again, let's just use Jeremy Grant. Say the Lakers end up trading for Jeremy Grant and they unload, Rui, Gabe Vincent, and Cam Reddish. Well, now they're in the market for, hey, we need to get some cheap talent to just kind of fill out the roster. Maybe they bring in like a Blake Hinson and a Traore or a Castleton. And then maybe Quincy can get in on a two-way deal. And the reason you want him on a two-way rather than an Exhibit 10, which then can convert to a G League roster spot once he's waived and clears all that, is because then you have him signed under control where another team, if he's just on the G League roster, another team can come in and sign him. Obviously, the Lakers are really interested in Quincy, and he is. I mean, he's a very good talent. But, again, he's still very raw, needs some work and he's definitely a upside level prospect. He is older. He's 23. And on top of that, he's 6'3", 200 pounds roughly, which he's got good size for, if he was a point guard. But the problem is he's better suited as a two guard, as that kind of vacuum scorer, as that guy that, can light it up off the bench, maybe catch fire and knock down 3 or 4 threes, right? Like, that's kind of the role that I would see him in with the Lakers. Kind of like almost like a Seth Curry style role, where he's just a guy that's coming in, filling a need, knocking down the open shot, playing off ball alongside like LeBron and, D'Lo or whomever, right? He is a guy that can initiate the offense, right? Like, he's a guy that I could see bringing the ball up, kind of getting you into your actions, getting you into your sets. But he'd kind of be more close to like a Gabe Vincent style for the Lakers, is what the type of role that I would see him playing if he were to, get a rotation spot, not necessarily right now, but in the foreseeable future. I see him as just that hard-nosed defensive guy, which he's shown the ability to do. Can he do it at an NBA level? Hopefully we'll find out. But he's a guy that I see getting you into your actions, getting the offense flowing, and then being primarily off ball, right, as a shooter. Not saying that on occasion he can't put the ball on the deck, get to the rim, apply some rim pressure, maybe pull up and get some over the top shooting going. I do think that he could potentially be a little more versatile than that, but I think more likely than not his role is just initiator, defend the opposing guard, right? Which, if he's slotted in as the point guard initiator, again, I think he has good size, good strength, good physicality to stay in front of and defend various guards at the point or the two. Again, he doesn't have the size to defend, threes or anything like that. He's primarily just off the bench defensive guy. But I also think that he's a guy that can be very versatile in that even potentially in a starting role, right? I'm not going to limit somebody to, he's only going to be a bench player, right? I mean, if he can come to the league and translate that 41% from three, right? And he can shoot, not even, let's say 41%. Let's say he can shoot consistently, 38 to 40%, right? Like if he can do something like that year in and year out, then yeah, I mean, if he can be a real defensive piece, obviously it depends on the type of offensive system you're running. Obviously depends on the type of playmakers you have around, right? Like when you have LeBron, it's easy to have a guy like Quincy, manning the point as just like that 3-and-D shooter, just defend and be the point of attack as well as knock down the open three, because LeBron, most of the offense is going to run through him. He's the guy that's going to be making plays. Also, in like the type of offensive system JJ Redick wants to run, where it's not really just one guy kind of slicing and dicing the defense. It's, whoever the initiator is bringing the ball up the court, getting you into your action, and then the ball's you got a bunch of movement and various actions that are developing, and then, you're trying to find that weak point in the defense and which you're capitalizing on, right? Rather than, the traditional sense where LeBron's playing the point, he's bringing the ball up, he's dictating every action, every set. No, JJ wants a more free-flowing type of offense, right? And so I do think in that type of offense, Quincy is a player who can really thrive because he can get a shot off quick. He's good at getting his shot off over the top of even bigger players. Lakers Nation, shout out to Lakers Nation, they did an interview with Quincy, and he actually addressed that and talked about that. So I don't want to go too much into that because I don't want to take too much away from the interview because it was a great interview. But his ability to just get his shot off, I think, is very important as a movement shooter. Again, I think he's more of a development guy right now. I don't see him being a guy that is looking to come in immediately and really kind of fill out a roster spot or anything like that. I think he is more of a guy that's just, hey, let's bring him under the Lakers banner, another development guy, get him on an Exhibit 10. Let's bring him into the training camp. Let's see what he's got. Let's see how he looks. And then, if we bring in one of our two-way guys because we're able to pull off a trade or something, then, we can sign him to a two-way. If not, then we get him to the G League roster and hopefully no one picks him up for at least a year or two. So that way we can kind of get things flushed out and in order, right? Because, at some point, you're going to have to start bringing those two-way guys into the main roster, right? Like Blake Henson, he's only getting older. He's not 21, 22. So, yeah, you give him a year or so to develop, but at some point you got to bring him up. Same thing with Colin Caston, right? Colin Caston's been a couple years of development, right? If he's ready, let's go, bring him up, right? Like you're never going to really know if someone's ready until they actually get the opportunity, right? And, I look at a guy like Colin Caston, it's like he's just such a need right now for the Lakers. Obviously, you'd have to get rid of some roster spots, but, it's like how long are you going to keep him in the G League developing on a two-way? At some point, you got to start bringing these guys in. And if you don't believe they're ready, then, after a couple years, time to let them go and bring in the next guy. Yeah, I'm all for developing guys, but if you're going to develop guys for 5 years and now they're 30, it kind of defeats the purpose, right? Like the idea is like, hey, you really hone in on the development of your young guys. So in a year or two, boom, they're ready to go. And then they're a real rotation piece in the roster. But you also got to know, when to fold them, right? Like, know when to hold them, know when to fold them, right? You got to know when to, okay, like we've been putting a lot of time, effort, and energy in this guy, and there's just not really that improvement. There's not really that growth to the level in which we need it. Maybe it's time to cut this guy loose and bring in somebody else and give them a shot, right? Like, it might be a little cutthroat, but that's the reality, right? It's the NBA. It's the league, right? Like, if you got it, you got it. If you don't, you don't. And Quincy is a guy that I think has the potential to have it. I could see him even this season as just primarily an off-ball shooter, like 3-and-D guy. Like, I think that's a role he could play, like if you needed it, right? Like, let's say you pull off a trade for Jeremy Grant, right? And you need to fill some roster spots, and you're like, we could use another guard initiator, right? Like, okay, I sure, I could see you bringing him in as maybe like your third guard or something, and then maybe giving him some spot minutes here and there as just like an off-ball shooter, like kind of in the Gabe Vincent role. Hey, defend, be that point of attack, because he is older, he is more mature, comes from a good organization. But I question his long-term fit, because one, you look at the Lakers roster, and obviously trades and stuff like that could change things, but you look at the Lakers roster right now and it's like, okay, you have Jalen Hood-Schifino, and then you have Bronny James as like your point guards of the future. Then you have Austin Reeves and Max Christie, who again are like your two guards of the future. And then, your three spot, you have, Traore, who you're probably growing and developing, Maxwell Lewis, right? Like, you just look and you kind of go to where he would slot in, Quincy would slot in, and it's like, where can you squeeze him in? Where can he fit? Right? Now, again, if he's just a limited role coming off the bench, obviously, again, if you end up trading a Jalen Hood-Schifino or something like that, then yeah, sure, right? He's a guy that could slot in. But yeah, if he was like 19, I'd be like, oh, man, you could develop him for the next few years, kind of see where he's at. As Austin Reeves or these guys get older and start fading out, boom, he could kind of slot in and be that next wave guy. But, again, he's an older guy, 23, which isn't like old, but for, rookie standard, I mean, look at like Dalton Connect, right? He's expected to have an immediate impact and be part of the rotation out the gate, right? Austin Reeves, right? When undrafted, he was looked at as like, hey, this is a guy that can make it an immediate impact and be out the gate, right? Like that's the kind of thing. Like, you spend 2 years developing him. He's 25, which again isn't old, but if you have like in that same span, if you get Bronny James and he's developing and he's just, he's also younger, it's just like, are you really choosing him over that? If they're like, let's say they're equal as far as like development goes, right? Like, you're probably going with the younger guy because there's just so much more upside in his growth and development, right? So it's just, where does he slot in? But look, I like Quincy. I liked him when the Lakers signed him to the Summer League roster. We talked about him. And, I want to see him get an opportunity. I think he's a guy that, I think will be just a G League guy this year, which is, you got to start somewhere, right? And then, maybe eventually kind of slot in as just that movement shooter, that off-ball shooter, if he can maintain that 3-point percentage. We'll see how it goes. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like Quincy? Do you not like Quincy? Do you think that he'll have an opportunity? Do you think, he'll never be anything more than a G League guy? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you don't like this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.